Let me be honest up front, I generally just don't enjoy Bong Joon-ho's movies. I can appreciate how well made they are and some of their merits, but there's always something or other that ends up ruining them for me. So did I go into Parasite expecting not to enjoy it? Yes! I have learned from experience what I can expect from his movies. But I do have my reasons, and you can judge for yourself how valid they seem to be. This review will be full of spoilers, so if you haven't seen the movie and you really want to surprise yourself, I guess don't watch this first. Speaking of which, when I read reviews of this movie without knowing what it was about, a lot of people said, well, I can't really tell you anything that it's about. It's better if you go in without knowing anything, which made me think it's full of interesting twists or something where the concept gets turned on its head at the end. But after watching the movie, I realized the reason people can't summarize it is because the movie doesn't have a point. Look, let's try it. What is the movie actually about? A poor family, one by one, takes employment with a rich family, often using deception and lies in order to fake their credentials. They end up doing real work for the family, and their goal is they don't have a stated goal. There's not any goal that's given in the movie. There's not any goal that any of those characters ever express. We know that they're poor, so obviously they're trying to make money in order to make ends meet, but what do they want beyond that? That's not a story. Do they want to take over the rich people's house? The poor family does fantasize about what it would be like to live there, but they never expressly state that their goal is to take it over or to kick out the rich family or to buy it from the rich family or to sabotage them or to blackmail them. There's none of that. For the entirety of the film, there is no plot to get rid of the rich family. The poor family just wants to continue to make money off of them. Is the poor family's goal in order to move to a nicer home than they currently live in? That would be a reasonable goal, especially since at the end of the second act, their home gets flooded. But that's never made clear in the script. None of the characters express that. Even the father affords to buy a Mercedes-Benz, but none of the characters move out of their house or rent an apartment somewhere or stay at a hotel. Even during the flood, they could have afforded to stay at a hotel for one night or to go to a sauna in order to clean up before they work the next day. There is no express purpose about what the money will be used for. The characters don't want anything other than to make money from this one rich household. That's not a story. All of this is expressed, or not expressed, in the first act, and I was on board with the first act because I thought all this would be revealed later in the film or there would be a big twist. But again, no real motivation for the family is ever given, and it's just not resolved. In the second act, we're reacquainted with the former housekeeper, and we learn about her husband who lives in the secret basement bunker of the rich people's house. Yes, this provides tension and it creates stakes for the poor family because now they have to keep their secret in order to keep working for the rich family. But it makes it feel like all the intricate plotting in the first act didn't really matter that much because all it needed to achieve was to get them working in the house, and then the second act creates the tension. And I guess the tension's just really over, will anyone get exposed about what they've actually been doing? And the third act is not about that. The third act isn't really about anything. I feel that the third act is just non-existent. Things just happen that don't resolve any of the subplots. The poor family's secrets don't get exposed or they don't trip up in a way that reveals themselves. What happens is that the husband living in the basement goes on a murderous rampage and everyone flees, and that's basically the end. It's dumb. It's really dumb. At the end of the second act, when they're sleeping in the gymnasium and the father says there is no plan, I feel like that's the director admitting that he doesn't know where to go. He didn't plot this out. Somehow he plotted a very intricate first act, but he had no idea how he was going to resolve anything, and so he does not in the third act. Yes, it's realistic in real life where you may have plans and they'll get messed up for any number of reasons, but movies are plotted deliberately. The writer or writers are in control of everything that happens in them. And again, given that the first act is so meticulously plotted, it doesn't make sense for the third act to have no plot. Now here's another question. What is really at stake with the poor family? In what way are they actually frauds, and in what way are they actually defrauding the rich family? The son is the first to try to get a job, and he gets these fake credentials that he attended university when he actually didn't. But when he meets the rich wife for the first time, she says she doesn't even care about his credentials. She doesn't look at them. And what happens is he becomes the English tutor for the rich daughter, and the movie leads us to believe that he is genuinely a good English tutor. His best friend says that his English and his knowledge of English is better than even the other people who attend university. The rich wife observes him teaching and is convinced by how good he is. The daughter never complains for a few other reasons, but still, when the poor daughter becomes the rich son's art teacher, we also have every reason to believe that she is genuinely a good art teacher. She knows art, she knows Photoshop, and as she claims, she knows acting. We see the kid produce new paintings every time she visits. He seems satisfied, the rich wife seems satisfied. There's no reason to doubt the poor girl's abilities. The only thing fraudulent is her claim about not really knowing the poor son and her background, but other than that, she can do what she has to do. The same goes with the poor father. A lie is created about his background and his credentials, but when he gets the driving job, he legitimately purchased his own Mercedes-Benz, and the rich CEO tests his driving ability, and the guy passes. So he's not a fraudulent driver, he's a legitimately good driver. And last, the same with the poor mom. She's hired to be a housekeeper, and she is such an effective housekeeper that within 8 minutes, she can create a dish that she knew nothing about to begin with. And the dish is so acceptable or good that the rich wife doesn't have any complaints about it. What I'm saying is that the poor family aren't really frauds. They're doing real work and they have the real skills to do that work and they're getting compensated for it. So then one question might be, the movie title, Parasite. Who is actually the parasite in the film? Again, except for the deceptive nature of how they got the jobs, the poor family is doing real work for the rich family, and the rich family has consented to compensate them for it. This isn't a parasitic relationship. This is what's known as a mutualistic relationship. Both sides benefit. Even if the poor family was honest and didn't get those jobs, the rich family would have hired equivalent people who had the right credentials and they would pay them the same wages. So what about the former housekeeper's husband living in the basement? Is he a parasite? Well, not really, because we are explicitly told that the former housekeeper paid her own way for the food that she's using to feed him. The food she's feeding him is not coming out of the rich household and it's not coming out of their finances. Well, certainly, isn't there something parasitic about him living in their home? Well, not really, because the rich family doesn't know anything about this underground bunker basement thing, so he's not inconveniencing them by living there because they don't even know about it. This is what's known as a commensal relationship, where both sides don't really inconvenience one another. A parasitic relationship is only one in which the parasite does harm or takes resources away from the host. And that's not really happening in this movie, unless one wants to say that when rich people get richer that they're taking money and wealth away from the rest of society. But the movie doesn't say that at any point. It doesn't try to make that argument at all. One of the biggest disappointments is that there's really nothing shady about the rich family. The poor father stabs the rich CEO at the end and kills him. And why? The rich CEO acted pretty reasonable and decent to him throughout the entire film. He warned the poor father twice about crossing the line with him, but that's because the poor father kind of questioned his love for his wife. That is legitimately offensive. Why shouldn't the CEO have gotten mad at that? The other criticism the poor father hears while he's hiding under the living room table is that he has an odor that is detectable by the CEO when he's driving. But this is something he could take care of. It's even mentioned earlier when the young rich boy smells the scent of the father and the mother and realizes that they wash their clothes with the same detergent, that they should wash themselves more thoroughly and in order to cover their scent. So this complaint about his smell should be something that he could take care of. In Act 3, when the poor father is driving the rich wife, she holds her nose because she can smell him, but I thought that's because he had been waiting in sewage water from the night before when his home was flooded. And instead of paying money to stay at a hotel or a sauna and clean himself up after, he slept in a gymnasium and therefore he didn't shower in between. In which case, his really bad odor that day was his own fault. Yes, he was tired and it's a tragedy that his home was flooded, but if he cared about maintaining his cover, he could have taken care of that. And in any case, that didn't blow his cover or get him fired. The turning point about him wanting to stab the CEO and then stabbing the CEO was because the poor girl got stabbed fatally, and the poor father rushed to her side, and the CEO wanted the poor father to drive him away because the crazy guy living in the basement was on a rampage with a knife. The CEO wanting to run away from that guy seems quite reasonable. I mean, yes, it would have been better if he had been concerned about the girl getting stabbed, but I don't think it's unreasonable for him to want to save his own life. And when a crazy guy is going around trying to stab and kill people, that doesn't seem like a good reason for the poor father to also want to stab and kill people. It just seemed like a big nonsense climax. What I thought was going to happen, I thought that some big twist was going to be revealed about the rich wife, because all the poor characters keep saying like, oh, why is she so nice? Why is she so agreeable with everything? I think it was intended to make people suspicious about her motivations. And the big twist is she apparently never has any motivations. She's just nice from start to finish and has no character arc. What about the rich girl? The rich girl can sense that there's some relationship between the poor boy and the poor girl. She doesn't know that they're brother and sister. So is that setting up anything about her intuition for these things? The rich girl has no agency whatsoever in the story. What about the rich boy? After all, it's set up that he is pretending to be some kind of art savant, and he also has this history about being afraid of the ghost in the basement, quote unquote, and he's also infatuated with American Native Americans, and he can understand Morse code, and he keeps in touch on his own phone with the former housekeeper. Is any of this setting up anything to be paid off? No, the rich boy also has no agency in the story. How about in Act 2, where the poor family is hanging out in the rich family's house when they're gone, and the poor boy says something, he echoes what his rich friend had said, where when the rich girl is in university, he'll start going out with him. Was that foreshadowing or setting up anything? Nope, it's not developed at all. How is it that the poor family has cell phones and they have internet access, but they couldn't check the weather to find out that there would be a giant flood that would affect their area of the city? Doesn't matter, it's just a plot hole. How about that really dumb ending where the poor father, instead of fleeing the crime scene where he just murdered the rich CEO, he goes back inside the house and he locks himself in the basement that they don't know about? Apparently the rich wife escaped the scene and is alive. We don't know, but we can assume that because we didn't see her die, and she never sent the police to search the house, even though it's common knowledge that some rich households had these secret bunkers to protect them if there's ever a raid from North Korea. The police don't know about this, and they never check if there is one. Is there any significance to the poor kid first tripping down the stairs and the family is listening to the former housekeeper and her husband, thus revealing them? And also when the poor boy goes back to the basement with the big rock thing, I guess to try to murder one of them, and he drops it, is there any significance to him keep screwing up? No, he gets severe head trauma, which I assume meant that he was dead, but he wasn't dead. He was resuscitated and healed, and I guess over time he's completely normal again, so he doesn't really suffer any real consequences. But the poor girl is killed, and she suffered the consequences of, I don't know. The movie had no real conclusion. Nothing's paid off. None of the themes are sufficiently developed. Does it sound like I'm being too nitpicky? Well, I just notice a lot. I watch movies and I pay attention. Quite honestly though, the point where I started to lose interest was where the poor family was hiding under the living room table, because it seemed at that point that they were just trying to stretch out the tension about them trying to escape without being noticed. And once they escaped without being noticed, all the tension went away, and I really kind of lost interest. And then the wife says, oh, we're going to have an impromptu birthday party, which also signaled to me that the script didn't know what to do. So the script was going to include an impromptu birthday party. Whatever, it just seems a shame that so much was set up in the first act and nothing was paid off in the third. That, to me, is not an enjoyable film.